What if I told you that a Labrador Retriever living in a tiny fifth floor apartment is actually often happier and honestly healthier than one living in a house with a massive backyard?
I mean, it sounds totally backwards, right?
It really does.
Yeah.
But today we are completely stripping away that whole Hollywood myth of the perfect family dog. We've got this fascinating transcript provided by Labrador Retriever Health Academy, and we're just going to dig right into it.
Yeah, the mission for this deep dive is really to help you figure out what the daily practical reality of living with a lab actually looks like.
Exactly. So you can determine if it genuinely fits your life. So, okay, let's unpack this because people often treat getting a lab like buying, a standard household appliance.
Right, like a toaster or a vacuum,
Yeah. You do the research, you pick the best model, you bring it home, and you just expect it to plug in and work perfectly out of the box, just instantly making your life happier.
which is definitely not how biology works.
No, not at all. The reality revealed in these documents is that it's much more like taking on a highly active, slightly destructive, yet incredibly loving new roommate who doesn't speak your language.
That is a great way to put it. We really do love to romanticize this breed. We see them in movies running in slow motion across a golden field,
Always returning the tennis ball perfectly.
always, and then sleeping peacefully by a crackling fireplace.
Mm.
But that comforting image does a massive disservice to the actual animal. Today isn't just about listing what these dogs need on paper.
Right.
It's about analyzing the fundamental biology and psychology of why they need it. When you understand the why behind their behavior, you can critically evaluate your own actual daily rhythm.
Not your aspirational New Year's resolution routine.
Exactly, your real routine.
Yeah.
You need to look at that before you even think about bringing one home,
Well, let's start with the absolutely foundation of that daily rhythm, which is where you live. Before we even look at the dog itself, we have to look at the physical space they're going to occupy.
which is where people make their biggest assumptions.
Huge assumptions. The general wisdom out there, like the unwritten rule of dog ownership, is that you simply must have a house with a large yard to responsibly own a large breed like a lab.
But the data from the Health Academy paints a really counterintuitive picture when comparing, apartment living to suburban yards and rural
It
environments.
really does. Wait, so according to this, someone in a tiny fifth floor apartment could actually be a better lab owner than someone with a massive fenced in backyard.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that a dog's well-being comes down entirely to the human owner's commitment to structure, not the square footage of the property.
Wow.
I mean, let's examine the psychology of the human in an apartment versus a house. When you live in a smaller space on the fifth floor, you are forced into intentionality.
Because you can't just like open a back door.
Right. You cannot simply open a door when the dog needs to burn off energy. You have to physically put on your shoes, leash up the dog, take the elevator, and provide structured exercise.
You're walking them with purpose.
Exactly. You are scheduling trips to the dog park. That constraint forces a highly engaged routine.
So the environment actually acts as an accountability mechanism. You literally can't be lazy.
No, you can't.
Which means the apartment dog is out in the world smelling new things and interacting with their owner for hours a day. Meanwhile, the suburban backyard can kind of become a trap for complacency, right?
Oh, absolutely. The yard often becomes an excuse. The data actually shows that many yard-owning labs are severely underexercised and chronically understimulated.
Because the human brain just seeks the path of least resistance.
Always. It's raining or it's been a long day at work, so the owner just opens the back door.
And the dog just goes out and sniffs the exact same patch of grass they've sniffed for 3 years.
Gets bored after 5 minutes, and then just sits by the door waiting to be let back in. A yard is not a substitute for structured exercise because a dog is not going to run solitary wind sprints out there.
Right, they're social creatures. They want to be engaging with you.
Precisely.
That reframes the entire concept of space. It's not about the acreage, it's about the activity. And this applies to rural settings too, which I found super interesting.
Oh, yes. Having 50 acres of land isn't a free pass either.
The documentation stresses that rural owners have to focus heavily on safe containment and strict supervision. Like you can't just let a lab roam free into the woods and hope for the best.
No, because their scavenging instincts will absolutely get them into trouble. Their biology drives them to explore, track scents, put things in their mouths.
Without intentional supervision, a rural environment just becomes a massive hazard zone.
Yeah, wildlife, toxic plants, vehicles. The living situation matters far less than the daily routine the owner is willing to actively maintain.
Which brings us right inside the house. Because even with the best walking routine in the world, a yard or a park alone isn't going to drain all their energy.
Not even close.
A lab is going to spend a massive amount of active time indoors with you. And this is where the physical reality of a working breed really collides with, modern home decor.
The clash of worlds.
How does a normal house actually survive a Labrador, especially during those crazy puppy and adolescent years?
Well, it survives through proactive environmental design. You have to physically prepare your home for a large, muscular animal carrying a lot of momentum.
Yeah, the adolescent phase is notoriously challenging, right?
Ah, very. Because they are relentlessly chewing prone. We are talking about the need for highly durable furniture, protective covers, locking mechanism.
And they are heavily food motivated.
Incredibly, if something is on a kitchen counter and it smells remotely edible, their scavenger genetics will compel them to find a way to eat it.
I have to imagine that stems directly from what they were bred to do. Like, if they are historically bred to work long, grueling hours in freezing water,
Yeah.
their bodies must require massive calorie
But
reserves.
that is the exact biological mechanism driving the behavior.
So their brain is probably hardwired to view every dropped crumb or like an unguarded loaf of bread as a survival necessity, not just a snack.
Yes. They aren't being stubborn or malicious when they steal a roast off the counter. Their genetics are screaming at them to consume available calories.
You can't train away a biological imperative through reactive punishment.
You really can't. You have to outsmart it by securing the environment.
And it isn't just the food stealing, it is their sheer physical mass. The documentation mentions the need to accommodate their size, and it specifically highlights the tail.
The famous Labrador tail.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically an anatomical rudder designed to steer a 70-pound animal through turbulent water. In a living room, it essentially functions as a joy-powered windshield wiper
That's pretty accurate.
that secretly doubles as a blunt force weapon. You leave a glass of wine on a coffee table, and one happy thought later, it is launched across the room.
The tail has incredible muscle density. And again, we look at the why behind the destruction. A lab's body carries momentum.
Right.
So proactive preparation removing fragile items from tail height, securing trash cans, utilizing proper baby gates is the only way to maintain a harmonious home.
If you wait until they break an expensive vase or eat something toxic from the trash and then you get angry, you're fighting their fundamental biology.
Exactly. You have to design the living space for a bulldozer to safely operate in.
So, okay, you've secured the coffee table, hidden the food, dog-proofed the environment. The physical living room is safe. Now we have to look at the people and the other creatures actually sharing that space.
The social dynamics are huge.
Yeah, it's a massive part of their appeal. They are known for being incredibly gentle and patient with kids.
They are deeply cooperative animals. They generally thrive in busy, multi-person households and do remarkably well with other pets when introduced properly.
But patience has limits, right?
Absolutely. Supervision is non-negotiable with young children. A dog is never a babysitter, regardless of how sterling the breed's reputation is.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because of that cooperative nature, labs are like universally recommended as the ultimate dog for first-time owners.
Right, you hear that everywhere.
But reading the realities of their energy levels in the transcript, it feels like that label might be a trap. Like, is the great for first-time owners label actually a trap? People hear terms like eager to please and trainable, and they assume that means low effort. But the source explicitly warns against that.
It does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that misunderstanding is the primary reason adolescent labs end up in animal shelters.
Oh, wow. Just because people misunderstood the assignment?
Eager to please means they are desperate to work in partnership with you. It absolutely does not mean they manage themselves.
Right.
The documentation is unambiguous on this point. A lifestyle match completely trumps prior dog ownership experience.
Let's break down what that lifestyle match actually looks like, especially regarding the modern workday. Most people are working 9-to-5 jobs plus a commute.
Which means being away from the house for 10, maybe 12 hours a day.
Yeah. And for a working dog bred to be alongside a human all day, being left alone in a silent house for 10 hours must feel like being locked in a sensory deprivation tank.
It really does. And that sensory deprivation triggers intense psychological distress.
Wow.
Labs are not independent, solitary animals like certain livestock guardian breeds who are just content to watch a field alone all day. They crave companionship and mental engagement,
So long, unstructured hours of isolation lead directly to boredom.
which manifests as anxiety. And an anxious 70-pound working dog will relieve that stress by chewing through your drywall or destroying your sofa.
Which means balancing a full-time job with a lab requires a massive intentional time investment. It means waking up an hour earlier for a vigorous morning walk.
Yeah.
It means budgeting for a midday dog walker or doggy daycare so their day is broken up. And it means utilizing proactive enrichment tools, like frozen puzzle toys or snuffle mats.
Just to make those solo hours manageable for their brains, you can't just assume the dog will sleep peacefully in a sunbeam until you get home.
So a dedicated novice owner who has never had a dog before but who commits to that rigorous schedule will actually thrive.
They absolutely will thrive with a lab. Conversely, a highly experienced dog owner who is simply never home will fail with this breed.
Because if you're exhausted after a 10-hour shift and just want to watch television, a Labrador's need for engagement is going to feel like an impossible burden.
Exactly.
Well, managing that kind of physical energy and outdoor lifestyle inevitably brings a very specific physical toll right back into your living room.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, let's pivot to daily maintenance. Specifically, the biological realities of their unique coat. Because this is where the romanticized image of the low-maintenance, short-haired dog completely falls apart.
It really does. The double coat is a marvel of evolutionary engineering, but it is the #1 source of daily frustration for unprepared owners.
And this stems directly from their cold water retrieving heritage, right?
Yes.
Let's explain how this coat actually works, because I found it fascinating. It's essentially a two-part system. You have the dense, soft undercoat that acts like premium thermal underwear, trapping a layer of warm air right against the skin.
Right.
And then you have the outer guard hairs that are slightly oily and highly water-resistant. So it allows a lab to plunge into an icy lake, retrieve a duck, and shake off completely dry down to the skin.
It's amazing in the winter. But placing that high-tech winter gear into a hot climate creates a massive mismatch.
It creates a dangerous thermodynamic problem.
It really does. Because that undercoat is so ruthlessly efficient at trapping heat, labs are highly susceptible to overheating in warm climates. You cannot simply remove their thermal underwear in July.
Right, they're stuck in it.
So if you live in a hot region, you have to drastically alter your lifestyle. You are restricting exercise strictly to the cooler early morning or late evening hours.
You're ensuring constant access to deep shade and cool water.
And you have to actively monitor them for heat exhaustion, because their drive to retrieve a ball will actually override their body's warning signals.
That is wild. And then, of course, there's the grooming reality. Because they have short hair, the assumption is, oh, they don't shed much.
Oh, but they do.
Bringing a lab into your home is essentially like moving in with a localized weather system. There's just a permanent year-round forecast of dog hair.
A storm of fur.
Yeah. And we aren't just talking about a few stray hairs on your black pants. The documentation describes seasonal blowouts during the spring and fall transitions.
The visual of a coat blowout is genuinely shocking to new owners. As the seasons change, the dog sheds its entire dense undercoat to prepare for new growth.
Wow.
We are talking about pulling literal tumbleweeds of fur out of the dog in massive clumps. It will cover your floors, weave itself into your carpets. It floats in the air.
The documentation literally states that a spotless, hair-free home is fundamentally impossible. You just have to surrender to it.
You really do.
You are vacuuming constantly, and regular brushing several times a week, sometimes daily during a blowout, is mandatory just to keep it from taking over your house.
If finding dog hair in your morning coffee is going to cause you deep psychological distress, this breed is entirely incompatible with your peace of mind.
It is a permanent biological trade-off. The exact same trait that makes them buoyant, resilient swimmers requires you to become intimately familiar with a death-shedding brush.
Very true.
Okay, so because this dog is now so deeply integrated into your daily social life and covered in this weather-resistant shedding coat, eventually you are going to have to leave your house for more than just work.
Right, vacations, holidays.
Yeah, you're going to go on a trip, travel to see family, or move. Let's explore life on the move, because integrating a 70-pound animal into your travel plans takes serious logistics.
Safe travel is a major consideration in the Academy's notes. The documentation emphasizes that loose dogs in cars are dangerous projectiles.
Which is terrifying to think about.
It is. You are looking at investing in a crash-tested, well-fitted harness or an appropriately sized travel crate. You also have to factor in frequent stops for an animal with high metabolic needs.
But fortunately, with positive early exposure, labs are highly adaptable and
Mm.
generally travel beautifully, right?
They do. They love being with their people.
But you can't always take them with you. There will be work trips or international vacations where boarding is the only option. The documentation stresses that early planning is required. Vetting facilities, interviewing sitters, or relying on trusted family.
It's a big deal for them.
But I want to push back on a detail here that seems a bit contradictory. If they are known for being such highly adaptable social dogs, why would a sudden trip to a boarding facility cause them so much stress? Like, shouldn't a super social dog just view a kennel as a fun party with new friends?
That's an excellent observation, and it points to a profound paradox in canine pack psychology.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It is precisely because of their deep cooperative social bonding that abrupt separation is so traumatic. A lab's friendliness is not generalized attachment.
Ah,
They don't just love people in the abstract. They form intensely deep bonds with their specific human family.
so their greatest social strength is actually their biggest emotional vulnerability.
Exactly that. They are hardwired to look to their specific family unit for cues, structure, and a sense of safety.
Makes sense.
So when you suddenly remove them from that unit and drop them into a boarding facility filled with strange dogs, echoing barks, new smells, and unfamiliar humans, no matter how kind those humans are, the dog loses its entire social anchor.
Oh, wow. The environment is chaotic, and their trusted leaders are just gone.
Right. It's less about them being terrified of the physical building and much more about the absolute shock of the sudden disconnection from their humans.
Which is why gradual exposure is the only responsible approach. You do not just drop a Labrador off for a 2-week vacation having never boarded them before.
No, you schedule trial stays. You start with a few hours of daycare, then move to a single overnight stay.
You allow the dog to build the experiential understanding that when you leave them in this loud, unfamiliar place, you do eventually come back.
You have to smooth that transition to prevent triggering severe separation distress.
That level of forethought, like the trial runs, the vet records, the scheduling, it requires an incredible amount of organization.
It really does.
Which brings us to the ultimate reality of owning this breed. Bringing a Labrador Retriever into your home is not just a casual phase. It is a massive, life-altering commitment that spans a decade or more.
We are talking about thousands of days of mandatory exercise, relentless mental engagement, continuous grooming, and lifelong preventive veterinary care.
And the documentation is refreshingly blunt about this. This breed is not the right fit for every household.
Admitting that a lab doesn't fit your current lifestyle isn't a failure. It's really the hallmark of a responsible animal lover.
Absolutely. And keeping track of all that care is practically a part-time job.
Oh, it is.
The text does briefly mention a highly practical tool for managing this chaos, an app called Vital Pet. It's designed specifically for organizing daily care routines, keeping track of those endless veterinary appointments, and storing medical and vaccine records all in one accessible place.
Yeah, it's just a modern tool to help manage the immense logistics of that long-term commitment.
The logistics are undeniably intense. But for those who can genuinely meet these daily needs, who lean into the chaos rather than fight it, the reward is an unparalleled partnership with a loyal, endlessly enthusiastic companion.
It truly is.
So, what does this all mean? I want to challenge you, listening right now. Take a hard look at your life. Strip away the slow-motion movie montage of the golden dog catching a frisbee in the sun.
Think about the messy reality.
Yes, look at your actual Wednesday evening after a stressful day at the office. Look at your actual Saturday morning when it is 38 degrees and pouring freezing rain. Honestly reflect. Does your daily rhythm truly have room for the relentless, joyful demands of this animal?
This raises an important question. It's a thought I want to leave you to ponder. We spent a lot of time discussing their cold water retrieving heritage.
Right.
A Labrador's genetics are literally hardwired to plunge into freezing, turbulent water, retrieve heavy objects in their mouths, and work cooperatively alongside human hunters for 10 hours a day.
It's an intense drive.
That is what centuries of selective breeding are screaming at their DNA to do. So how does placing that exact same intense genetic drive into a modern climate-controlled apartment fundamentally alter the psychology of the dog?
It is just a staggering amount of pent-up potential energy.
If we don't give them a job to do, whether that's structured obedience training, advanced fetch, agility courses, or vigorous daily hiking, are we simply forcing a retired elite athlete to go stir-crazy on our living room couch?